The ambush. The void of space was silent, endless, and cold. Stars shimmered in the distance, tiny specks of light against the blackness. In this vast emptiness, a lone human ship drifted, its metallic surface reflecting the faint glow of a nearby nebula. It was small compared to the massive warships that roamed the galaxy, its design simple and unassuming. It looked like an easy target, something weak, something insignificant. High above, hidden in the darkness, the warlord Corvex watched from the bridge of his flagship. His crimson eyes burned with confidence as he studied the lone vessel on its holographic display. His fleet, the Doomfang Armada, had crushed dozens of enemies, leaving a trail of destruction across the galaxy. He had battled hardened warriors, destroyed mighty fleets, and conquered entire worlds. To him, this human ship was nothing more than a fragile insect floating in the void. "Humans are weak," Corvex growled, his deep voice echoing through the command deck. "They build flimsy ships, rely on fragile technology, and have no true warriors. This will be over quickly." His second-in-command, a scared reptilian officer named Vactol, nodded in agreement. "Shall we destroy it immediately, Warlord?" Corvex smirked, his sharp teeth glinting under the red glow of the control panels. "No, we will play with it first. Overwhelm them. Show them the power of the Doomfang Armada." At his command, the fleet moved into position. There were 12 warships, each one larger and more powerful than the human vessel. Their plasma cannons hummed with energy, their missile bays loaded and ready to fire. The human ship did not react. It did not attempt to flee. It remained there, floating in the void, almost as if it was unaware of the approaching danger. Corvex chuckled. "They don't even see us coming." Pathetic. With a single motion of his clawed hand, he gave the order. "Fire." A barrage of plasma bolts streaked across space, burning through the darkness like deadly comets. Explosions erupted as they struck the human ship, sending bright flashes across the battlefield. The impact was powerful, shaking the entire sector with its force. Smoke and debris spread around the vessel, making it impossible to see the damage. The crew of the Doomfang Armada cheered. Vactol grinned. "Direct hit. Their shields must be gone. They are defenseless now." But then, something strange happened. The debris cloud began to clear, revealing the human ship once more. It was still intact. Its hull, instead of being broken and shattered, was glowing with strange blue energy. There were no visible cracks, no signs of damage. It was as if the attack had done nothing at all. Vactol's grin faded. That is not possible." Corvex narrowed his eyes. He tapped a command on his console, scanning the ship again. The readings made no sense. The energy signature of the vessel was fluctuating, shifting, adapting. It was not a normal ship. Something was wrong. Before he could issue another order, the human ship finally moved. Its engines roared to life, and in a split second, it turned to face the Doomfang Armada. A deep artificial voice echoed through the comms, cutting through the static like a blade. "You chose the wrong target." Then, without warning, the human ship fired. A single energy beam shot forward, slicing through space faster than the eye could follow. It struck one of Corvex's warships, a massive dreadnought designed for planetary assaults. For a brief moment, nothing happened. The dreadnought hovered silently, untouched, but then a thin line of molten red appeared along its hull, stretching from bow to stern. In the next second, the ship split in two. A massive explosion followed, engulfing the dreadnought in fire and debris. The shockwaves spread across the battlefield, shaking the nearby warships. Pieces of metal and burning wreckage scattered into the void, a grim reminder of how quickly everything had changed. Silence filled the bridge of Corvex's flagship. The crew stared in disbelief at the sight before them. A single shot, just one, and an entire warship had been obliterated. Vactol's voice trembled. "Warlord, what is this ship?" Corvex did not answer. He clenched his fists, his claws digging into his palm. His confidence, his arrogance, his belief that humans were weak. It all shattered in that moment. The human ship was not an easy target. It was a predator, and they had just provoked it. The battlefield was silent. The wreckage of Corvex's destroyed warship drifted in space, its shattered remains glowing with dying embers. The Doomfang Armada had never lost a ship so quickly. Never to a single enemy. Never to a human ship. Corvex's claws dug into his armrest. His rage boiled, but for the first time in his long career, it was mixed with something else. Unease. "This is impossible," Vactol whispered, still staring at the debris. "One shot. One." How did? A deep hum vibrated through the void. The human ship moved again, slow and deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. Its dark metal hull reflected the light of the burning wreckage, giving it an eerie, ghostly appearance. It was smaller than Corvex's battleships, but somehow it felt bigger. Vactol swallowed hard. That is no ordinary human ship. Corvex's jaw tightened. Then we will rip it apart and show the humans their place. He turned to his officers. Prepare a full-scale assault. Swarm it from all sides. Overload its defenses. The Armada sprang into action. Fighters poured out from the hangars, forming a deadly swarm. Bombers loaded their payloads, engines roaring. Heavy warships adjusted their cannons, targeting the human vessel. The human ship remained still, watching, waiting. Then it spoke. "Warning. Further aggression will not be tolerated." The deep synthetic voice echoed through every ship in the Doomfang Armada. It was not human. It was cold. Mechanical. It was an eye. Vactol's scales turned pale. That ship, it's fully automated. Corvex scoffed. A machine. That explains their arrogance. Destroy it. The fleet opened fire. Plasma beams, missiles, railgun slugs, all at once. A storm of destruction filled the void, consuming the human ship in a sea of fire. For several seconds, nothing could be seen but burning light. Corvex allowed himself a smirk. Nothing could survive that. But then, the fire cleared. The human ship was untouched. Not a single scratch. Not a single burn mark. Its hull shimmered with a strange blue energy, something far beyond the technology of the Doomfang Armada. Vactol's voice was barely a whisper. "It's adapting." Before Corvex could react, the human ship retaliated. With terrifying precision, it fired again. This time, multiple shots. Each beam found its target. A cruiser exploded instantly, breaking apart like brittle glass. A destroyer's engines overloaded, causing it to spin out of control before bursting into flames. A squadron of fighters simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Panic spread through the fleet. Pilots screamed into comms. Officers shouted orders. Some ships attempted to retreat, but the moment they turned, they were erased from existence. The human AI spoke again. Tactical assessment complete. Engaging annihilation protocol. Corvex felt something he had never felt before. Fear. His claws gripped his throne-like chair. His mind raced. What was this ship? Why did humans have this power? Why had no one warned him? Then he realized the truth. This wasn't an ordinary human vessel. It wasn't a weak cargo ship, nor was it a simple warship. It was something far worse. And he had made a terrible mistake. The hunt had begun. Chaos spread through the Doomfang Armada. Corvex's warships, once symbols of fear and destruction, were now turning into burning wreckage one by one. The human ship. No, the machine was wiping them out effortlessly. Vactol's scales turned pale as he watched another battleship explode into a fiery storm. "Warlord, we must retreat. We were not prepared for." Corvex slammed his fist against the control panel, shattering it with his strength. "We do not run. We are the Doomfangs." His red eyes burned with rage. "Order the remaining ships to flank it. Surround it. We will crush it from all sides." Vactol hesitated. "Warlord." Do it. The remaining warships adjusted their positions, closing in like a steel cage around the human ship. Plasma cannons glowed with energy, railguns locked onto weak points. Hundreds of torpedoes were loaded, ready to fire. And yet, the human vessel remained still, silent, waiting. Vactol clenched his claws. Why isn't it moving? Then the AI's voice echoed again. Tactical error detected. Counterattack initialized. Suddenly, the human ship vanished. 1 second it was there, trapped in the middle of Corvex's armada. The next, it was gone. Gasps filled the bridge. Officers scanned their displays, trying to locate it. It was impossible. No ship, no matter how advanced, could just disappear. Corvex's claws gripped the armrests of his throne. Find it. Now. Then, a shadow appeared behind one of the largest warships. Before anyone could react, a beam of pure energy pierced through the ship's core. The warship split in half, its remains scattering into the void. The human ship reappeared. It had moved so fast that no sensors had detected it. No warp jump, no hyperspace signature. Just raw, impossible speed. Impossible, Vactol whispered in horror. It's playing with us. The AI spoke again, its voice as cold as death. Processing enemy tactics. Countermeasure deployed. Suddenly, the remaining warships lost control. Their engines shut down. Their weapons powered off. Their targeting systems scrambled. Corvex's display flickered with static. His fleet was blinded. Systems failing. An officer shouted, "Something is inside our network." Vactol's eyes widened. It's hacking us. From the outside. The human ship was inside their systems. It controlled their fleet now. Corvex's breathing grew heavy. His mind, once filled with confidence, was now drowning in dread. His fleet, his invincible armada, was being toyed with. And the worst part, the humans hadn't even sent a crew. This was just a machine, and it was winning. The AI spoke one final time. This battle is over. Then the executions began. The bridge of Corvex's flagship was filled with panic. Officers shouted over one another, their claws scrambling over dead control panels, trying desperately to regain control of their systems. The screens flickered with static. Their weapons were offline. Their engines were dead. The once mighty Doomfang Armada was now nothing more than a floating graveyard waiting for execution. And the human ship, the machine, was watching. Vactol's voice was barely a whisper. It trapped us. Corvex snarled, his sharp teeth grinding together. His mind raced, searching for a solution, a strategy, anything that could turn this around. But deep down, he knew the truth. They had made a terrible mistake. The AI's voice returned, its cold tone slicing through the silence. Enemy fleet neutralized. Initiating elimination protocol. A deep hum filled the void. The human ship's hull shifted, glowing with blue energy. Then, without warning, it fired. A single beam of energy cut through space. Corvex watched in horror as the nearest warship was sliced in half. The two halves drifted apart, glowing with the heat of destruction before they exploded, sending fiery debris across the void. Then, another shot. A battleship's engines overloaded, detonating from the inside out. Fire and plasma erupted from its core, its crew vanishing in an instant. The executions had begun. The Doomfang Armada, once feared across the stars, was being erased. Vactol clutched the armrest of his seat, his eyes wide with terror. We have to surrender. There's no winning this. The ship, it's a demon. Corvex turned to him, rage flashing in his eyes. We do not surrender. We fight. Vactol's claws trembled. Fight with WHAT. He gestured to the flickering displays, to the disabled fleet, to the burning wreckage outside. We have no control, no weapons. That thing has already won. Corvex refused to accept it. He refused to believe that humans, weak, insignificant humans, had built something stronger than his people's greatest warships. But the proof was all around him. The AI spoke again. Surrender is not an option. Then it fired again. A dozen warships exploded at once. Shockwaves rippled through the Armada as ships were torn apart like paper. The once orderly fleet turned into a chaotic field of drifting corpses and flaming wreckage. Some captains tried to run, firing up emergency thrusters, hoping to escape the slaughter. It was useless. The moment a ship turned away, the human vessel destroyed it instantly. It was as if the AI could predict every movement, every decision before it was even made. There was no escape. Vakhtol trembled in his seat. His breath came in rapid gasps. He had served in dozens of wars. He had seen entire civilizations burn. He had never been afraid. But now, he had never felt terror like this. Korvax's claws dug into his throne-like chair, his breathing heavy. He had underestimated the humans. No, this wasn't just a human ship. This was something else. He glared at the display. Enough of this. Vakhtol looked at him in disbelief. You're still thinking of fighting. Korvax growled, reaching towards the last control system still working, the distress beacon. If they couldn't defeat this ship alone, then he would summon reinforcements. He slammed his fist down, activating the beacon. A deep, ominous tone filled the ship, sending out a distress call to every remaining Doomfang warship in the galaxy. The message was simple. Enemy is stronger than expected. Reinforcements required immediately. Bring the full fleet. Vakhtol's eyes widened. You're calling for the entire armada. Korvax grinned, his sharp teeth flashing. This machine is powerful, but it can't stand against thousands of our ships. For the first time since the battle began, hope flickered in Vakhtol's chest. Yes, yes, no matter how strong the human ship was, it was just one vessel. Against the full Doomfang armada, it would be overwhelmed. But then, the AI spoke again. Distress signal detected. Countermeasure deployed. Korvax's grin froze. A horrible whine filled the air. The distress beacon, their only hope, suddenly shut off. Vakhtol stared in horror. What just happened? Korvax's claws shook. He tried again, slamming the distress beacon. Nothing. The AI spoke, its voice filled with finality. No reinforcements are coming. The realization hit Korvax like a thunderstrike. They weren't just trapped. They were alone. Vakhtol's voice was barely a whisper. We're already dead. The human ship moved forward, its glowing weapons charging one last time. And then, the final execution began. The battlefield was silent now, except for the crackling remains of shattered warships and the eerie hum of the human vessel as it drifted forward, preparing for the final strike. The once mighty Doomfang armada, feared across the stars, was now nothing more than a collection of burning wrecks, scattered like discarded bones in the void. Korvax sat frozen in his command chair, his claws gripping the armrests so tightly they threatened to break. His mind refused to accept what was happening. It wasn't possible. This was supposed to be an easy victory, a simple extermination mission against a species that should have been beneath them. And yet, they had walked straight into a nightmare. Vakhtol's breath was shaky, his wide eyes reflecting the destruction outside. It didn't just disable us, he muttered, barely above a whisper. It's playing with us. Korvax bared his fangs. He wanted to argue, to claim that they still had a chance, that they were warriors and warriors never surrendered. But how could he say that now? His fleet was in ruins. The reinforcements he had tried to call for were never coming. The human machine had ensured that. The AI's voice cut through the silence once again. Final phase initiated. Targeting remaining command structure. A deep hum reverberated through the void. The human ship's hull began shifting, its glowing blue energy intensifying. Whatever it was preparing to do, it was going to be the finishing blow. Korvax's instincts screamed at him to act, to do something, anything, to stop this. He turned to his remaining crew, only to find terror-stricken warriors who no longer looked like the elite soldiers of the Doomfang Dominion. They looked like prey. He snarled. No, he refused to die like this. Get me manual control of the thrusters, he barked, his voice sharp like a blade. Vaktol hesitated. But, do it. Vaktol's claws scrambled over the barely functioning controls. A moment later, a small light flickered on one of the displays. We have partial thruster control, but it won't get us far. Korvex didn't care. If they could move, then they could fight. He reached for the emergency override, redirecting all available power to what remained of their propulsion systems. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a desperate move. Without warning, the flagship lurched forward, not away from the battle, but directly toward the human warship. Vaktol's eyes widened in shock. You're charging it? That's suicide. Korvex's grin was wild, his teeth bared in defiance. If we're going to die, we're taking that demon with us. The ship groaned as its failing engines roared to life. Fire erupted from the back of the vessel as it pushed forward, hurtling toward the enemy ship at full speed. It was a desperate maneuver, but if they could ram into it, overload the last of their reactors, they might just be able to cause a chain reaction. Might. The AI's voice remained disturbingly calm. Hostile action detected. Countermeasures deployed. The human vessel didn't move. It didn't need to. A sudden pulse of energy rippled outward, and in an instant, Korvex's flagship was frozen mid-charge. It was as if an invisible force had wrapped around the ship, locking it in place. The thrusters screamed. The engines burned bright. But they weren't moving. They were completely immobilized. Vaktol's voice was strangled with fear. It stopped us. Korvex's breathing was heavy. He looked at the displays, at the energy signatures surrounding their ship. It wasn't a tractor beam. It wasn't gravity wells or any known stasis field. This was something else. The AI spoke again. Your fate was decided the moment you engage. Now you will serve as an example. A slow, deep hum resonated from the human warship. The glow of its hull darkened, shifting into something unnatural. A cold dread filled the bridge as Korvex felt something he had never felt before. Not just fear. Powerlessness. Vaktol's voice was barely a whisper. What is it doing? The answer came in the form of a single beam of light. It wasn't a traditional weapon, not like the kinetic railguns or plasma cannons used in war. No explosions followed. No violent burst of energy. The beam passed through the Doomfang flagship silently. And then the ship began to vanish. Not explode. Not burn. Vanish. It started at the edges, a quiet unraveling of matter itself. The metal plating on the exterior crumbled into nothingness, like dust in the wind. The process spread inward, creeping through the hull, the corridors, the machinery, the crew. Vaktol looked down at his own claws. His fingers were beginning to fade. He let out a strangled gasp, horror filling his eyes. It's erasing us. Korvex could only watch as his warriors disappeared one by one, their bodies dissolving into the void without pain, without sound, as if they had never existed at all. He turned his gaze to the enemy ship one last time, and for the first time in his life, he understood. The humans weren't weak. They had never been weak. They had simply been holding back. And now, the Doomfang Dominion was learning what happened when humanity stopped holding back. Korvex's vision blurred. His body felt light, weightless. The edges of his world crumbled into nothing. And then, darkness. There was no explosion, no wreckage left behind, only silence. The battle was over, and the human ship drifted forward, searching for its next target. The void was quiet once again. The wreckage of the Doomfang Armada had been reduced to drifting debris, the last traces of a once mighty fleet that had dared to challenge the wrong enemy. The human warship moved through the battlefield like a phantom, its sleek, obsidian hull absorbing the faint glow of distant stars. It had not taken damage. It had not even struggled. Deep within the Dominion's stronghold, panic spread like wildfire. High Command had received the distress calls, but those signals had not contained screams, not the sounds of battle or cries for help, just silence. A transmission had arrived shortly after, but it was not from their own. It was a message from the enemy, and it contained only 5 words. You attacked the wrong ship. Those words had shattered the illusion of Dominion superiority. Corvex's fleet had been one of the strongest in their empire. If it had been crushed so effortlessly, what chance did the others have? The Doomfang generals gathered in their war chambers, their voices raised in desperate arguments. Some refused to believe the reports. Others demanded immediate retaliation. But the ones who truly understood the gravity of the situation remained silent, their claws twitching as they reviewed the battle logs. There was no logical explanation for what had happened. The human ship had deployed weapons that defied known technology. The energy readings didn't match any classification, and worse, there had been no waste energy detected. Every species in the galaxy used weapons that left a trace. Radiation, heat signatures, electromagnetic pulses. Even the most advanced empires left behind a trail of their destruction. But the human warship had left nothing. It was as if it had rewritten the laws of reality itself. And now it was heading for the Dominion's core worlds. Admiral Xaltor, the supreme commander of the Dominion fleet, stood in the center of the war chamber, his scaled hands clenched behind his back. His eyes were locked onto the holographic display, tracking the movement of the human warship. It wasn't moving like a standard military vessel. It didn't follow predictable attack patterns or strategic formations. It was moving in a straight line, as if it had no concern for enemy defenses, as if nothing could stop it. Xaltor turned to his tactical officer, his voice sharp. What defenses do we have in its path? The officer hesitated before responding. The Bastion Line, Admiral. 27 warships, 5 planetary defense platforms, and the orbital fortress Carthal. A formidable force, enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. But after what had happened to Corvex's armada, was it enough? Xaltor exhaled slowly. Send the order. Every ship in the Bastion Line is to engage at maximum range. Do not allow it to close the distance. The order was relayed instantly. Across the Dominion's defense network, alarms blared as warships prepared for battle. Crews scrambled to their stations, weapons were primed, shields raised. And then they waited. The human warship approached without hesitation. It did not slow, did not change course. The Bastion Line opened fire. Energy beams, railgun slugs, and plasma torpedoes filled the void, converging on the single unyielding target. The assault was relentless, a storm of destruction designed to erase any threat before it could retaliate. The Dominion fleet had fought countless wars. They had crushed rebellions, annihilated civilizations. They had never lost a defensive battle. But today, something was different. The moment the barrage reached the human warship, it vanished. Not deflected, not absorbed. Vanished. The energy readings on the Dominion ships flickered wildly, showing impossible values before stabilizing again. The crew members felt it, too. A strange, unsettling sensation, like the universe itself had glitched for a moment. The warship emerged on the other side of the barrage completely untouched. The Dominion commanders stared in disbelief. Xaltor's claws dug into his palm. What just happened? No one had an answer. The human ship did not slow. It drifted forward, the Bastion Line now standing between it and the Dominion's core worlds. And then it spoke. The transmission echoed through every ship, every outpost, every command center. It was not an open broadcast. It was a direct intrusion, overriding security protocols, forcing every Dominion officer to hear it. We warned you. The voice was calm. It was not a threat, not an ultimatum. It was a statement. The Bastion Line panicked. Some ships tried to retreat. Others fired again, desperate to slow the inevitable. The orbital fortress Carthal activated its doomsday weapons, launching a barrage that could tear a moon in half. None of it mattered. The human warship did not evade, did not raise shields. It simply shifted. Space itself seemed to bend around it, as if reality refused to touch it. The fortress Carthal, a structure that had withstood wars for centuries, crumbled instantly. There was no explosion, no shockwave. One moment, it was there. The next, it was gone. The remaining ships hesitated. Zoltor felt something he had never felt before. Dread. The human warship drifted past the ruined bastion line, untouched, undeterred. It was heading straight for the Dominion homeworld. No one could stop it. No one could even understand it. The invasion had failed. And now, the Doomfang Dominion was about to learn the true meaning of fear. The Dominion homeworld, Vorka, had never known war. It was the heart of the Empire, a world of towering spires, endless cities, and planetary shields that had never been tested in battle. Here, the Doomfang rulers had always believed themselves untouchable, protected by the might of their fleets and the fear they had instilled across the stars. But fear no longer belonged to the weak. Now it belonged to them. The human warship drifted closer, a silent specter against the void. It had destroyed the bastion line without effort. It had erased the orbital fortress, Carthal, as if it had never existed. And yet, it had not fired a single shot. It had not engaged in any traditional act of war. It simply moved forward. The Doomfang leaders gathered in their war chambers, their claws trembling as they stared at the approaching vessel. Every attempt to stop it had failed. Every strategy had crumbled. No species had ever defied them like this. No enemy had ever been so unstoppable. Admiral Xaltor, his pride shattered, turned to the High Chancellor, his voice tight. "We must surrender." Chancellor Vorleth bared his fangs, his eyes burning with denial. "Unacceptable. We are the Dominion. We do not surrender." Xaltor's claws twitched. "We are already defeated." The room fell into silence. Then, the warship spoke again. The same voice, calm and absolute, echoed through every communication system, not just on Vorka, but across the entire Dominion Empire. "You attacked the wrong ship." Those 5 words shattered whatever hope remained. The planetary defense grid activated in a last, desperate act of defiance. Cannons the size of mountains, designed to annihilate armadas, unleashed their fury. Missiles capable of devastating continents streaked through the void. The sky itself turned to fire, and once again, it meant nothing. The attacks reached the warship, and simply ceased to exist. No impact, no resistance, nothing. The Doomfang people, watching from below, began to understand. This was not a battle. This was judgment. The warship entered the planet's atmosphere, cutting through the sky like a silent omen. It descended toward the capital, its presence drowning out all sound, all thought. The Dominion's leaders stood frozen as it hovered above the grand citadel. Then it finally acted. A pulse of energy rippled outward, not an attack, but something far worse. A message. It spread across the planet, reaching every Doomfang mind at once, delivering a single truth. The war is over. You lost. And with that, the warship turned. It ascended back into the stars, vanishing into the endless dark. It had never come to conquer, never come to destroy. It had come to remind. The Doomfang Dominion had attacked the wrong ship. And now, they would live with the knowledge that they had been spared only because humanity allowed it.